people were becoming more and more angry with him. And not just with him, but anyone who was associated with him. And I just wasn't man enough to deal with that. And so I started to fade in the background. And I heard what he said, and I watched him, but I wasn't trying to press in real close because I know what our leaders are like. Oh, look at me. I know how you Romans are too. You kill people. Ours do the same. They take us out and they stone us to death. And I wasn't quite sure Jesus was who he said he was. I mean, after all, I'd watched him as a carpenter, and he looked normal to me. He didn't glow. He ate, he slept, he got tired. Oh, he had a great sense of humor. But I just wasn't sure, and then it happened. It was Passover, about 10 years ago now. And you could feel the tension in the city. Part of our city was wanting to erupt against the Romans, and we wanted to be free. I'm sorry, I'm not here to talk politics, but that's what some of us wanted. Some of us wanted to go back to the old ways, to be more authentic and follow our teachings. And people like me just wanted to make it through the day and feed my family and be happy. And anytime you heard the name Jesus, people were happy or they were angry. Or like me, they were scared. That night, I wasn't there, but the 12 who were told me that they had their communion together. And they ate. And Jesus looked around the table. Oh, I'm glad I wasn't there. And said, one of you is going to betray me. One of you will be the reason that I am murdered. Well, Peter, is it me? Oh, what a leader. And as soon as he got done, everybody followed him. Is it me, Lord? Oh, is it me? And then Judas. I never did like him. Something about him just didn't sit right with me. He always seemed to be dressed a little too nice for a guy who's living on faith. Always wondered about that field he wanted to buy one day. Said he only needed 30 more pieces of silver to get it. Well, he got it. Because my religious leaders went to him and said, we'll make you a deal if you will betray him. We need somebody to ignite the bomb. We'll take it from there. All you have to do is kiss him. You may not know this because you're not a follower of Jesus yet, but in our family, the men kiss each other on the cheek and the ladies do the same. It's a sign of love. And it is a sign of special significance because it's the same sign Judas used to betray the one who gave us the right to do it. Judas took their money. Betrayed Jesus. That night in the garden, he was crying. If there's any other way, please, Father. But if there isn't, your will be done. Soldiers came, palace guard. Judas grabs him and kisses him and says, friend. And Jesus says, why are you calling me a friend? He always said exactly what he was thinking. And then he said the strangest thing. He said, just do what you came to do. He didn't plead. It was as if it was his plan. They took him. They beat him. They would take their fists and grab the thick beard. Oh, great beard. And they would pull it out by the chunks. And the blood would begin to flow from where not just the pieces, but the skin itself was removed. I was going to leave, but none of us thought Peter. In fact, at that night, he had taken a sword and cut off a man's ear. I suspect he was aiming for his neck when the man moved, but he got him by the ear. And Jesus picked up the ear and healed him. Then they turned him over. The Romans had their way with him. I don't want to be mean, because most of you are Roman here, but you're a vicious lot. They beat him. Then they flogged him. If you've ever seen the floggings, there wasn't much left. In fact, I didn't see it, but the historian who's now writing said that you couldn't even tell that he was a man. His blood was flowing. His lips were chapped, so dry. They took a crown they made out of the thorns. You know, the ones along the road that are 1.5 2 inches long. Oh, they infect your skin and you welt. Oh, I hate getting caught in those. In fact, as a boy, that's a funny story, but that's not why you've come. They took and they made this crown, and they didn't just set it on his head. They pressed it into his skull, and infection began to set in. And they would bow in front of him, and they'd say, "All hail, King of the Jews." And then they would blindfold him, and they would hit him. So, "You're a prophet, are you? Who is it who hit you?" Finally, it may not sound like it, but they showed mercy on him by finally taking him to the cross to die. What's amazing about this man is that most men never made it to the cross. If you've ever watched, most of us die before we even get to the cross because of the beatings that you Romans give to us. Not Jesus. He was tough. He stumbled. Simon, he's in the back there. Had to help him carry that beam the rest of the way up to the top of the hill, the skull we call it. And Jesus wasn't fighting. At first I thought he was just exhausted, but he laid down on it. When they took the spikes and they drove them into his hand, you could hear him cry out in pain, but he didn't move the other hand. He left it. And his feet, they pounded the nails in, and then they picked up that cross and they dropped them in the hole. And I stood there and I thought for a moment that he was not really who he said he was. Our leaders began to yell, "Crucify him! Who do you think you are?" All kinds of things, and I was so confused. My family joined in, and before I knew it, I was part of the same group. Watching him there, had my own mouth, calling him a phony and a fraud. Because I didn't understand that Jesus came to die for me. I thought he came to set me free. Finally he died. And when he did, we all got scared. And you should have saw your Roman soldiers shook in their armor like little schoolgirls. Because a cloud came over and it became pitch black, not even a star in the sky. This is in the daytime. In the temple, that massive curtain that separated us from the Holy of Holies was torn in half. If you've never been there, and I know you haven't because you are not a Jew, it's the width of a hand. And it was torn mysteriously from the top all the way to the bottom. Now, I didn't see it, but many of my relatives and several of my friends said that people who had died came back from the dead and began to testify about Jesus. That was a scary day.